All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the couple of comments that you guys put in there. That's awesome. Hopefully, the rest of you got into that space of gratitude where you can wipe the fear and things that you have, which helps you then set your intentions of what you want to accomplish. So, what I want to talk today about actually is a little bit about intentions and being able to accomplish those things that we want to. And I just know for me, there are a lot of times for me that there are things that I say that I want to do, accomplish, that I then don't end up doing from time to time. And what I want to talk to you today about is what gets in the way of that. The thing that tends to stop us from being able to get what it is we want in life, and how that how we can change those things. So that's what I want to talk for just a minute about. Now, as part of doing that, though, what I'm going to share with you today is going to be somewhat, now I just lost the word of what I was, oh, shoot. I lost the word that I had in my head for it. Basically the opposite of what you would think. So somebody throw in the chat box, what's the word I'm looking for here? I had it this morning and now it's gone. Anyway, here's what I want you, here's where I'm going with it. So let me just kind of put it to you this way. Think of this, which, so you guys get to see some of my artwork here of how poor of an artist that I am, but that is the wing of an airplane, even though it probably looks more like a whale. And I don't know how well you can see it, but picture that that's the wing of an airplane. So if I am the airplane and I'm facing this direction, what you're looking at is the tip of the airplane wing here. Counterintuitive is the word I was looking for. So thanks for the help that you guys didn't give me. But so what I'm looking for is counterintuitive. And so what I'm going to share with you today is counterintuitive, meaning it's the opposite of what you would think. So if you look at an airplane, most people, what they don't understand is how an airplane gets lift. The way that an airplane flies is through a principle that is called the Bernoulli effect. And in the Bernoulli effect, what happens is it looks like this. Typically, if I were to label this and say that's 1, 2, and 3, and I were to ask you, where is lift generated on an airplane, point 1, 2, or 3? Most people will say that it's at point 1. Now, if I had you guys all in the room with me, I would ask you and have you guys vote on it. But for the sake of time, and since you're not in the room, I won't. But I will ask, where is the lift on an airplane generated? And people will say that it's at point 1, which is not correct. That is not the way that it works. What happens, or excuse me, it is at point 1. I said it backwards, I'm sorry. Most people would say it was point 3. I got to take a deep breath. We're going to go back to journaling for a few minutes and I can get my thoughts straight again. So sorry, I'm saying it all backwards. Most people will say that the lift on an airplane is generated at point 3, thinking that that's what lifts the airplane up into the air. A few will say that it is at point 2, but in actuality, the Bernoulli effect is that the lift is generated at point 1. And what's happening is that as it is going through the air, the molecules are forced to go up and over, and it is a longer path to get back to join back up again here, which creates basically a vacuum. So if you really understand how a plane flies, which apparently I do not this morning because I'm saying it all backwards, but if you understand the way that a plane flies and it generates lift, it is actually sucked up into the air, which is the opposite of what most people would think. We think that the air underneath the wing is what would push it up into the air, but that's not what happens. Is it creates a vacuum basically up here that lifts it up. So my whole point in sharing that with you is for you to understand counterintuitive, and I probably confused you more than I helped explain it for some reason this morning, but I'm back on track and I'm good to go here. Now, so here's the thing. What I want to talk to you about is assume this is point A and over here is point B. Now, if assuming that point A right here is what you have, point B is what you want. Or think of it this way. You could look at point B as being a goal that you have set. So if you were sitting here at point A and you wanted to get to point B, So you want to go from point A to point B. So from where you currently are to some other point, and that could be in terms of your health, that could be in terms of your income, it could be in terms of a relationship as well. So keep those pieces in mind as we talk about it, because this relates to all of those things. As you go from what it is you have as to what it is you want, the first thing that we have to do is decide what it is we want, which is probably the number one thing that holds people back more than anything, is they don't ever really decide what it is that they want. So you first got to decide, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be. And as we do that, then what happens is we've got to put together a plan to get there. So we then put together our plan as, okay, I want to get from where I am right now, whatever income I am at, or if we're talking about your health, whatever weight you're at, and I want to get to point B, which is some other income or some other weight that I want to get to. Well, what happens then is we put together this plan. Now, we all know that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Now, unfortunately, that's not always the way that it's going to go for us to get there. But just keep in mind, when we put together the plan, we're typically going to put together the plan as being a straight line of getting from point A to point B, because that is the shortest distance. Recognizing that that's not always going to be the path that we take, but that's the way we're going to set up the plan. It wouldn't make sense to set it up any other way. So we set up a plan of saying, I want to go from point A to point B. Now, what happens once we do that? And what we're talking about again right now is what typically gets in the way to keep us from doing that. So we decide that we want to go from point A to point B. Well, what happens along the way is it is guaranteed. It is 100% guaranteed that as you go from where you are to where you want to be, or to who you want to become, you are going to run up against obstacles or barriers. It is 100% guaranteed that you're going to run into an obstacle or barrier. Now, sometimes people will challenge me on that and say, well, no, you don't have to run up against an obstacle or barrier. And here's what I would say. If you keep in mind what we were talking about, is that I said, as you are going from what it is you have to what it is you want, and if it is something you have wanted and you don't currently have it, if you haven't already accomplished it, the reason you have not already accomplished it is because there is an obstacle or a barrier that is holding you back from doing it. Now, the difference between an obstacle and a barrier is an obstacle is something that's external. It's outside of you that is keeping you from getting there. A barrier is something internal. It's our thoughts, it's our beliefs, it's any of those things that are keeping us back. And a lot of times, I would say most of the time, it's those barriers that are keeping us from getting what it is that we want, which is a whole separate training that I could probably do for you on it. And maybe I'll do that next week for Morning Ascent. But the reason we struggle so much of going from what it is to have to what it is we want is we've got all these little voices that are in our head that tell us, if you go do that, you're not going to be who we think we are. And that we would rather be more comfortable with who we think we are than who we really are. And so that's part of what gets in the way, is these barriers. When I say, so obstacles are things outside of us. That would be finding clients. The barriers are the things that are inside of us, inside of our head, that get in the way. And it's the things we tell ourselves about why we aren't good enough, or we don't deserve it, or any of those type of things are the barriers that get in the way. So as you go from what it is you have to what it is you want, you are 100%, you can plan on going to run into the obstacles or barriers, because if they weren't there, you would make the decision to do it and you would already have it. And so the things that hold us back is these obstacles and barriers. Now, here's what happens is we tend to make this decision. We start down the path of going from what it is we have to what it is we want. As we're going along that path, we then now have this obstacle or this barrier that will pop up in front of us. At the obstacle or the barrier, we are forced to make a decision. Now, sometimes people will look at it and think of that it's a choice, that we have to make a choice, but it's not a choice. The choice was made back here. We made the choice to go from what it is we have to what it is we want. Once we have made the choice, or set the goal, you could look at it as, but once I make the choice to go there, The only thing left along the way is decisions. Is everything along the way is to be a decision. Now, as we come up to an obstacle or a barrier, we are forced with making a decision. And at that obstacle or the barrier, the decision that we are forced to make is, am I willing to pay the price? And if we are willing to pay the price, then we can continue on our way towards what it is we want. But think of it as obstacles and obstacles and barriers. Obstacles and barriers are toll booths in life. Think of them as when you're on a freeway that has toll booths. You can drive so far and then you come up to this toll booth, and at the toll booth, you're required to make a payment if you want to continue on. If you don't make the payment, you don't get to move on. Well, these obstacles and barriers that we run into in our life are toll booths. They demand payment, they extract a price. And if we pay the price, we get to continue on our way. If we don't pay the price, what happens is this. We end up down here at point C. So as we set a goal and say, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to become, we can plan on, we're going to run into these obstacles or barriers along the way. When we get to the obstacle or barrier, we either pay the price or we don't pay the price. If we pay the price, we get to continue on our way to what it is that we want. If we don't pay the price, we end up down here at point C. Well, if point A is what you have, point B is what you want, point C then is going to be some other result. So point C is going to be some other result. It's just something besides what it is we said that we want. And probably the best way of saying it is we get to go back. Think of it this way. If we end up at point C, you get to end up going back to right where we were. We end up back in the same position that we were at because we were not willing to pay the price. When we aren't willing to pay the price, we get some other result, which actually people will a lot of times say that what they got out of that is nothing. But what you get out of this exchange of coming up to a toll booth, an obstacle or a barrier, and you don't pay the price, people will sometimes say, well, I didn't get what I wanted. But you did get something. And usually what it is, frustration, reinforcement of that's not who I am, that's not what I'm worthy of, any of those type of things, which is not true, by the way. That one of my mantras, my number one mantra that I live by in life is power comes out of telling the truth. Power comes out of telling the truth. And we have to tell ourselves the truth. Point C is not who I am. Point A is not who I am. Point B is who I am. I have to be willing to pay the price when I come up against that obstacle or that barrier. And again, the obstacle or the barrier could be your fear of picking up the phone and making a call. The obstacle or the barrier could be your skill level at making the phone calls. And what you've got to be willing to do is to pay the price. I talked about the 12 steps to the summit of success. One of the things that I said on that is take a look at that and pay attention. Which of those things are you doing? Which are you not doing so well? And then look at it and say, which ones do I need to change? Maybe it's one of those things is the piece that you're missing is when I talk about paying the price. See, paying the price can be putting in actual time and effort to listen and record yourself. And then go back and listen to it and have somebody else listen to it with you and say, look, tell me the truth. Power comes out of telling the truth. When we tell the truth, we can change. When we continue to lie to ourselves and say it was the barrier's fault or the obstacle's fault, see, so many times that's what holds us back is we look at it and we go, well, it rained. I was going to go door knocking, but it rained. Which, by the way, if you are holding back on door knocking, again, it's just an excuse. Start doing it. The bug guy knocked on my door the other day, and I asked my wife, come to spray for bugs. I said to my wife, did you say anything to him or get mad at him for knocking on our door? And she said, no. And I said, okay, good. So just know it's time. Get back out there, start knocking on doors. Just step back and give them a little bit of distance. People won't worry about it. I went and visited somebody that moved into my neighborhood yesterday, just a few doors down, knocked on the door, and then I just stepped back. They came out. We had a great conversation. We stayed outside, and we kept the 6-foot distance. Just keep your 6-foot distance or have a mask in your hand and then put it on once they come out or open the door so that they can see that you're I would say wait till they're able to see your face first, then put on your mask, but keep the 6 foot distance. All right, I'm digressing for a minute there. All right, but be willing to pay the price, because as long as you're not willing to pay the price, you end up at point C, which is some other result. So let me show you, let me draw this up here real quick and explain how this really works. At the barrier, we are forced to make a decision. I already told you that. So I'm going to write this down here. We have to make a decision. The decision is to pay the price or to not pay the price. If we pay the price, we go towards what it is we want. If we don't pay the price, we get some other result out of what we thought we wanted to do. As a result of that, the good news is we can go back to point A and we can start over again. We can say, okay, yesterday I didn't pay the price. Today, I'm going to be willing to pay the price. We start to head down the road. We come up against the obstacle at the barrier. We have a decision. Am I willing to pay the price or to not pay the price? If we pay the price, we continue on. If we don't pay the price, now here's where, remember I started this whole discussion of this is counterintuitive? This is what I'm going to talk about. This is my whole purpose of setting up the counterintuitive. What happens is this: when we come up against the barrier and we make the decision to not pay the price, what happens is this: we immediately come up with, after that, the reasons why. Now, this is where this is counterintuitive. What happens is we think this. We think that along the way, we come up with these reasons that we're going to not, of why it started to rain, so I couldn't go door knocking. That's where I started this whole door knocking thing. It started to rain, so I can't go door knocking. Or I can't go door knocking because of the coronavirus and people are going to yell at me. Treat it no different than somebody with a no soliciting. If you knock on their door, most of the time they're nice to you. Occasionally somebody might say, can you not read? And usually I say, yeah, I went to Cypress High School. I didn't learn that skill very well. So, and I don't really say that, but unless I was in Magna, then I probably would say that. But listen, it's no different. It's just an obstacle or a barrier that is getting in your own head to stop you from getting what it is that you want. And as we do that, we think that that's the reason we come up with, and therefore we make the decision. I'm telling you, it's actually counterintuitive to that. We make the decision not to go do it, then we come up with the reasons. Or you could look at it as the excuses. We make up the excuses and come up with the reasons after we've made the decision not to pay the price, not before. And that's where this is counterintuitive. We think that the reasons show up first and therefore we make the decision. That is not true. What is happening is we make the decision not to do it, and then we find an excuse or a reason that will make us feel good. Remember I said power comes out of telling the truth? See, what happens is we lie to ourselves and we say, well, I would go door knocking except for the coronavirus. I was just ready to go out and do that. Or I was just going to go out and start door knocking, and then it got really hot outside, or it got really cold outside. All of those are just excuses. Those are the reasons we come up with because we've made the decision not to do it. Now, here's the final piece of this. Really, we come up with all kinds of reasons of it's the weather, I wore the wrong shoes, I don't have any flyers. We come up with all of these things, and those are all reasons which are just excuses. That the real thing that holds us back from going and doing this and paying the price is fear. At the end of the day, what happens is our fear of becoming who we said we wanted to become. So as we come up against these, now I use the example of door knocking, but let's forget that for a minute. And let's just say anything. As you go from what it is you have to what it is you want, we make the decision not to pay the price, we end up at point C. As soon as we make the decision, we come up with all of the reasons, we convince ourselves that this is why we didn't do it, is because of this, when in reality, it was because we were just scared. It's our fear of who we will become, or it's our fear of what is going to happen if we do pay the price. Because part of paying the price is going to be, as you change and you do more and become more, along the way, people are going to try to do the crab theory of try to pull you back down into the bucket and say, don't change, we like you who you are. We don't want you to become that. And they will use that as a way to try to hold you back. Don't let them hold you back. Decide you're going to pay the price. And as you pay the price, you will get to continue on your way. Now, here's the good news or the bad news, depending on how you want to look at it. After you've paid the price, you're probably going to come up another barrier along the way. And guess what? At that barrier, we get to make the decision to pay the price or to not pay the price. And if we pay the price, we continue on our way. If we don't, we end up at some other reason. We end up at some other result because we come up with reasons which are really rooted in fear. It's our fear of changing that really holds us back. And here's the key thing. The way to overcome this is what John Syatt talked about on Monday. He talked about commitment. The way that you're going to get through these obstacles and these barriers is you have got to get somebody to hold you accountable. Accountability is a privilege. And if you don't believe it, look at how much money agents are paying to coaches to hold them accountable. Essentially, the job of a coach for you in terms of real estate, and the top agents, every single one of the top agents is paying a coach, and they're paying them for what reason? Hold them accountable. That is exactly what it is. Accountability is a privilege, and the proof of that is the amount of money agents will pay to have someone hold them accountable. So if you need to, go and have somebody hold you accountable. Hire a coach. Pay somebody to hold you accountable. Call up and talk to Judy or to Brad or Brandon with ESS, and they will be glad to hold you accountable so that you can become what it is you want to become and achieve those goals. Because everything that is holding you back is just your fear. If you will tell yourself the truth, remember, power comes out of telling the truth. The truth is there is some fear that's holding you back from becoming who it is you really are. See, who you think you are is not who you are. It's just who you think you are. And it's because of the conditioning and things we've had along the way, because who you are is amazing. Who you are is incredible. And it's just a matter of you saying, I'm not going to let these obstacles or these barriers hold me back anymore. I am going to go become who I know that I am. So that's my challenge for you today, is take some time to stop and look at what are the obstacles or the barriers? What is holding you back right now? I promise you, you know. The first thought that comes to your head is what is holding you back. Make the decision today. I'm going to get someone to hold me accountable to pay the price so that you can get through that obstacle and that barrier to get to what it is you really want. And if you will do that, I promise you, you're going to see great results. So what are you going to do differently today as a result of what we've talked about? Make some notes for yourself. If you want to throw it in the chat box, go ahead and throw it in the chat box. There's some accountability for you as well. But make sure that you are getting someone that you know will hold you accountable. And here's the problem with just getting a friend to do it is, in fact, I was talking to Rick Bentley the one day, and he said, my problem with holding people accountable is I'll always let them off. I don't make them pay me the money. See, get somebody who's going to make you pay the money. In fact, I'll tell you guys, George gave me $100 last week because he didn't keep a commitment to me, and he paid up the $100 on it. I almost said, here, keep it, give it, don't give it to me because it's my boss. Of course, I don't really want to take that $100 from him. But I also thought, hey, what good does it do if I don't? Because then it just makes it easier for them the next time to go, hey, I'll give you $100 if I don't get you a daily message, and then not get me the message and be like, that's all right, he's not going to make me pay him anyway. So get somebody who will hold you accountable, because that is a privilege and it is something that's going to get you to where you want to be. Well, thanks for being with me, guys. We're going to go ahead now and we will do some closing affirmations and go out there and make it a phenomenal day.